Over the last few months, the Sony 1000XM3s have been the go-to ANC headphones for most people. Now, the Bose QC35s are still a decent pair of headphones because of their superior build quality and comfort over the 1000XM3s. But overall, the 1000XM3s still came out on top because of their added features and better performance. But now we have the all-new Bose NC 700s. Let's see if Bose is able to reclaim their crown from Sony. Now, for starters, the new Bose NC 700s retail for $400, which is $50 more than the Bose QC35s, which aren't going anywhere, and the Sony 1000XM3s. If you want to pick any of these headphones up, they'll be linked down below, and if you want to learn more about either of these headphones, please watch their full reviews because we're only going to be covering so much. Now first, let's go over the design of these headphones. The NC 700s have a radically different design to them that some people love and some people hate. At the end of the day, looks are subjective, and personally, I don't mind how these headphones look. But objectively, I'm not the biggest fan of these headphones' new design because they have more of a rounding effect than the Sony 1000XM3s, which have a much more low-profile headband, and I also don't like that the NC 700s can only be laid down flat, which means their included carrying case is slightly bigger than the carrying case that comes included with the Sonys. But the NC 700s still have those super spacious ear cups that are going to have no problem fitting most ear types, whereas the ear cups on the Sonys are better suited for people with medium or low profile ears that don't stick out as much, like I do. They're still comfortable, but they're not as accommodating as Bose's ear cups. I also want to quickly point out that the leatherette on Bose's headphones feels more premium than the leatherette on the Sonys. Even after a year of heavy usage, the leatherette on the Sonys still feels very synthetic or plasticky. But when it comes to overall comfort, I do think the 1000XM3s are more comfortable than the NC 700s because of their reduced clamping force. The NC 700s are fairly comfortable, but they do have significantly more clamping force than the Bose QC35s and slightly more than the 1000XM3s. For me, the NC 700s just aren't a pair of headphones you forget you have on like the QC35s or Sonys. So to be on the safe side, I don't think the NC 700s are big head approved. But if you have a smaller head, you'll be okay. Now when it comes to tech specs, thankfully both of these headphones charge via a USB-C port, which is great, especially if you're an Android user. But one of the first most obvious difference between these two ANC headphones has got to be their battery lives. The Sony 1000XM3s have an advertised battery life of 30 hours with ANC turned on, whereas the Bose NC 700s have an advertised battery life of 20 hours, which means you're going to be charging the NC 700s more frequently than the Sonys. Now, a 20-hour battery life is okay, but it is below average for premium ANC headphones in 2019. But I'm not really going to hold it against the NC 700s because of their very minimalist design. Plainly said, if you're really digging the NC 700s design, battery life performance is a sacrifice you're gonna have to decide to make or not. But just keep in mind, the Surface headphones have a much chunkier design than the NC 700s, and they only have a 15-hour battery life, so it could definitely be worse. But if you plan on constantly flying or commuting with these headphones, then I think you should really take their fast charging into consideration. If you charge the Sonys up for 10 minutes from a dead battery, they're going to get you 5 hours of playback time, whereas the NC 700s are going to get you 3.5 hours of playback time from a 15-minute charge. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, both of these headphones are good for watching videos on your phone. But if you're a power user, only the Bose can be connected to 2 devices at the same time, which means you can easily hot swap from your phone to your computer, whereas the Sonys can only be connected to 1 device at a time. But if you're an Android user, the Sonys are going to give you support for both LDAC and aptX, whereas the Bose only support AAC. But just keep in mind, if you decide to use a custom EQ on the Sonys, they're going to automatically revert to SBC. Whereas if you're an iPhone user, the Sonys are going to use AAC no matter what EQ you use. And if you think I'm talking complete gibberish right now, that's okay, because this section of the video is only for a very small section of nerds watching right now. But now, let's talk about the active noise cancellation on these headphones. In the past, I've always complained that the ANC on the QC35s had a lot of cabin pressure, which made them uncomfortable and sometimes led to headaches. Now, I know this might not be the case for everyone, but it is the case for me and a good chunk of other people. This is why I always preferred Sony's ANC, because they have very little to no cabin pressure. But this time around, the ANC on the NC700s is much more manageable, which is a great thing to see. But when it comes to overall performance, I still gotta give it to the Sony 1000XM3s. But so you can see for yourself, we're gonna jump into an Anc test. And to make things a little more interesting, I've also decided to throw in the Surface headphones. This way we have an unbiased third-party opinion. Overall, all of these premium ANC headphones do a good job of blocking out a good amount of noise, but the Sonys are still doing a better job of blocking out noticeably more higher frequency sounds like chatter than the NC700s and Surface headphones. And honestly, this makes a lot of sense because Sony made a big deal about their new QN1 chip when they first launched their 1000XM3s, whose main job is to block out those random higher frequency sounds. So I'm willing to go on record and say I think the ANC on the 1000XM3s is still superior than the NC700s because they do a better job of blocking out higher frequency sounds, and I think they have less cabin pressure than Bose. But still, the ANC on the Bose NC700s is still decent. We're honestly just splitting hairs here. But now, let's talk about the ambient modes on these headphones. Both of these headphones allow you to pump in the ambient sound around you, so you can still be aware of your surroundings. And ambient mode is great because you can still hear what's going on when you're walking around the city, or you can do what I do and have ambient mode turned on when you're watching a movie with your headphones, so that if someone calls your name, you can still hear them. And the ambient modes on both of these headphones are good because they sound natural and there's no distracting background hissing. But the ambient mode on the Sonys is still a little better than Bose's because it actively blocks out random loud noises. And so that you can see what I'm talking about, here's what I call the clap test. Like you may have just seen, when I clapped, the 1000XM3s automatically detected that sudden spike in sound and turned off their ambient mode, whereas the Bose pump in everything. This small but very important difference means that if you're wearing the Bose with their ambient mode turned on, and if a siren passes by, or if your dog starts barking, you're going to hear all of that through your headphones. Whereas the Sonys will actively block that out and save you from sudden jump scares. Now, I'm making a big deal about this because even the Surface headphones, which are Microsoft's first attempt at making ANC headphones, have an ambient mode that actively blocks out random loud noises like the Sonys. So if Microsoft managed to get it right on their first try, I think Bose should have had as well. But now let's talk about how these headphones sound. First off, both of these headphones sound good, but the NC700s are geared toward people who prefer a neutral sound signature, meaning that the bass on these headphones does resonate, but you don't really physically feel it. These headphones put more of an emphasis on the mids and vocalists, and unfortunately, Bose's app doesn't allow you to directly change how these headphones sound. Whereas with the 1000XM3s, you can make them sound however you want, depending on the type of music you listen to or what you're using them for. If you like to have punchy bass, you have that option, or if you want a neutral sound signature like the Bose, you also have that option. Personally, I like having a neutral sound signature when I listen to music, and when I'm going to watch movies with my M3s, I like to crank the bass up to a 10 so that I feel more immersed in whatever I'm watching. Now, both of these headphones have a touchpad on the right ear cup to controlling music playback, and after you get used to them, they're both accurate and fairly easy to use. You double tap to play or pause, swipe up or down to adjust your volume, and swipe front or back to skip through your music. But I do prefer Sony's touchpad for the simple reason of being able to press and hold to continuously raise or lower the volume. Whereas with the Bose, if you want to raise the volume, you gotta do a swipe for every step in volume. It's a very minor nitpick, but I do constantly find myself pressing and holding on Bose's touchpad to raise the volume because it's just so intuitive. But again, the touchpad on both of these headphones is just fine. Well, finally, let's talk about the microphones on these headphones. Now, for starters, the 1000XM3s are going to automatically turn on ambient mode to 10, so you're going to hear everything. But in general, the microphone on the M3s is pretty muffled. Whereas the microphone on the Bose NC700s does sound better because it does a better job of isolating just your voice, especially right now with us talking outside, with the wind blowing in your face, and the cars rolling by. And I also want to point out that through Bose's app, you can select just how much you can hear your own voice. But without a doubt, the microphone sound quality on the Bose NC700s is significantly better than on the Sony 1000XM3s. Because even indoors, the microphone on the Sonys still sounds very muffled and nowhere near as good as the microphone on the Bose. But overall, when it comes to choosing between the Sony 1000XM3s or Bose NC700s, personally, I still prefer and recommend the Sony 1000XM3s. Even though their ear cups aren't as spacious as Bose's, the reduced clamping force on the 1000XM3s do make them more comfortable for me. Their active noise cancellation is still slightly better than Bose because they still have slightly less cabin pressure and still do a slightly better job of blocking higher frequency sounds, and having the active ambient mode on the M3s is an added plus. Personally, I really like being able to customize the EQ on the 1000XM3s, and I also really like having that 30-hour battery life. But like I mentioned earlier, I'm not really going to hold the 20-hour battery life against the NC700s that much because of their really minimalist design. If you're really digging that NC700 design, then it's a sacrifice you're going to have to decide to make or not. But it also doesn't hurt that the Sony 1000XM3s are $50 less than the Bose NC700s. At the end of the day, both of these headphones are great, but I still prefer and recommend the Sony 1000XM3s. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.